morning, good afternoon and good evening. I'm Saskia, aka Sassy Colouring, and I am here today to do a video with you comparing the Prismacolor Premier set with the Prismacolor Scholar set. So I'm sure after 2020 that so many of us were affected by the dreaded Rona. Many people are now looking for a cheaper alternative to the more expensive pencils like the Prismacolor Premiers. My set has lasted me quite a while because I alternate between these and a few other different sets of pencils. But you can see that a few of them are quite small and they are well used. I would just like you to keep in mind that anything I say in this video is just my opinion. It's not, well, there are some facts, i.e. price, etc. But these are my opinions and you can use them as a basis to kind of decide whether you'd like to go for something like the Prismacolor Scholars. So I bought the set of 12 because I wanted to see how they compared before jumping into a larger set. Let's jump right in and see how these colours compare to each other. The first thing we're going to look at is the price of them. I'm going to base the price on the largest set that I can find and the price that I find them at today. So they may be more expensive sometimes, they may be cheaper at others, but what I'm going to do is take the larger sets because that's where you usually find the most savings. So we'll get a good idea of the general price per pencil. So I'm going to do my workings out in dollars because I was looking on the .com site. So for the set of 150 Prismacolor Premier, the average price was $122. Now I want you to keep in mind that there were slightly cheaper sets, there were a lot more expensive sets, and especially if you shop on .co.uk, they tend to jump up a lot more. But at the $122, that works out at 81 cents per pencil. Moving on to the Scholars, I found a set of 60. I couldn't find anything higher than that, and the set of 60 was $44.65. However, they were on sale pretty much across the board for $21.50. So that's 60 pencils for $21.50. I checked back 2 days later to see were they still on sale, and they were. So this seems like a quite a long prolonged sale. So you can get them at this price. At the normal price, they would run at 74 cents per pencil, but in the sale price, they take them down to 36 cents per pencil, which in my book is budget approved. So the difference between the 150 and the 60 set, if you were to buy them at full price, is 7 cents. But if you were to get them on sale, the Scholar set is 45 cents cheaper per pencil than the Prismacolor Premier sets. So while I focused on money first, a lot of us know that we have to work to our budget, but does the cost difference or the price difference, does it make a difference to the quality of the pencils? So what I'm doing is I'm trying to match up each Prismacolor Scholar to the coordinating Premier as closely as I can, and then we'll see how they work against each other. As far as the look of the pencils go, I seem to think when I hold them, I feel like the Prismacolor Premier are a little bit bigger, but when I put them end to end, they look pretty much the same. So there's not much difference in size. When it comes to the texture of the pencil, they feel very similar. What I have done is that I've put the Scholars on the left hand side and the Prismacolors on the right hand side, and I actually didn't notice that I did this until I swatched all the colours. So while the workings out for the Premier is on the left, these pencils are actually the Scholars. So I've zoomed in a little bit because I want you to see the way that these pencils are working, the colours that they're coming out with, and I was trying to do the exact same kind of pressure with both pencils. I was trying to go over very lightly first and then come back in a bit harder and then go like fairly hard to crushed the tooth on this printer paper, so the paper is not the best. But I wanted to see how they would compare to each other. Could they get the same amount of pigment? Was there a massive difference? I expected there to be a much bigger difference in the pigmentation. I expected the Prismacolor Premiers to have a much higher pigment than the Scholar because of the cost difference between them. Now with the first four, that was very hard to see. You could see a slight difference, but it wasn't until we came down to this kind of purple that there was a huge difference. That the Prismacolor Scholar just didn't get the depth that the purple did. To be fair, in comparison, the next colour, the blue, they looked very similar. It was only really the purple that stood out as completely different. So it's definitely something to think about. If you go for the 150 set, you obviously have 150 different colours. If you go for the 60 set, you're halving your colour set by more than half. But you're also paying an awful lot less. So 60 Prismacolor Premiers at 81 cents per pencil would cost you $48.60, opposed to the $44.65 at full price or $21.50 at sale price. So the next two colours were a dark green and a brown, and again there were slight differences in the Scholar and the Premier. The Premier was a lot darker on both of them. The dark green and the dark brown, you got a much deeper shade, whereas the Scholar kind of hit a certain depth and then stopped. The interesting thing is that the last colour that I swatched was the black. Now I don't know why, but when I looked at the Scholar black, it's quite a lot more vibrant than the Prismacolor black. The Prismacolor has got more of a matte kind of finish to it. The Scholar may be a bit shinier, and I don't know whether my eyes are just drawn to the shine or I don't know. I actually like the Scholar black better. Okay, so comparison side by side, there isn't really much of a difference. The colours seem very similar. The creaminess of the pencil is very similar. The pigment in the pencil is very similar. And this is me noticing that I did the colours on the wrong side. But I'm going to stick with the Scholars on the left and the Prismacolors on the right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the two blue colours and see how well they blend into each other. So this is another thing that I find with pencils, is that you can have a swatch chart and the swatch chart looks lovely, but the pencils don't like to blend with each other, or they make it really hard work to blend in your different colours with each other. So what I'm going to do is test the same two colours with the Scholar and the Premier, and then go into something like the three colours, a red, an orange and a yellow, and see if we can blend out those colours and how well you can blend colours that are not so similar. So in my humble opinion, the key to a really nice blend between coloured pencils is layer. The more layers you do, the easier it is for the pencils to work with each other. And as you can see with the Scholars, you get a really nice gradient from the dark to the light. Now you could go a little bit darker and you could go a little bit lighter, but that's how I wanted to do my gradient, and it worked out really well. The two colours are a dark blue and a light blue, you can see in the swatch chart, but they did blend very well into each other. With the Prismacolor Premiers, I'm a lot more used to using these pencils. My English is so off today, I'm sorry. I'm so much more used to using these pencils, so I know very roughly how they work together. Most colours I've used in comparison, I've used in combination at some point. I love the way the Prismacolors are so smooth and they blend so seamlessly together. This was never going to be a tough test for the Prismacolor Premiers, but I am really happy with how well the Scholars kept up with the Premiers. So onto the 3-color blend. Now if you look at the swatch chart, the red, the orange and the yellow, although they're in the same color family, they are very different from each other. And so you're going to have a bit more of a struggle to blend them into each other because they're so much more different than the 2 blues. So when you get a set of pencils that can blend seamlessly on a tri-color like this, you know that they're nice pencils to use, and it opens up a much wider kind of range of use with your pencils. And while all pencils will blend to some extent, if you see now the stage that this color is at, there's a very distinct band of red, a very distinct band of orange, and a very distinct band of yellow. And that can be problematic in your coloring. So there are many ways to blend out. There are the layers method, where you just put layer on layer on layer on layer and hope that they'll blend out. You can use colorless blenders. You can use blend-in solutions. But when your pencil does the majority of the work for you, it takes out the need for extra steps. Moving over to the Prismacolor Premier. Now there's a slightly wider difference in the 3 colors because the red is slightly more pigmented than, say, the Scholar Red. So it's a lot darker, not a lot darker, but a bit darker than what the orange is. So there may be a wider kind of gap between the colors. So realistically, it should be harder to blend these 3 colors than it was with the Scholar because there's a wider color difference. I hope that makes sense. So I can already tell you that it was a lot easier to work with these 3 colors, but to give them a really good shot of the blend, I'm going to use the white as a blender and see if we can make these look like seamless blends from red to yellow. Another thing to keep in mind is that while this video is sped up ×2, I was also working slightly faster than what I normally would because I didn't want the video to be hours and hours long. So I didn't spend an awful lot of time trying to blend these colors. So if you had the time to spend with extra layers, I think your results for both pencils would be so much nicer. Okay, so was there a massive difference? No, but was there a difference? Yes. Very slight, may I add, but yes. What we're going to do now is we're going to use an eraser and drag the eraser through the color. That way you get an idea of how pigmented your pencil is, because you'll see the pigment stretch across the page. And honestly, there's very, very little difference in the 2 pencils. So all these tests are great. It's great to see the color swatch, it's great to try them out on these sections, but what are they like when you're coloring? Can you color something like a petal on a flower, and will they look the same in your coloring books or in your coloring pages? Because that's what we all want them for, right? We want them to make our artwork look as quality as we can. So the idea is I'm going to color 2 petals in front of you, trying to use the same colors, and then I'm going to color the 2 butterflies off camera and come back and see if you can tell which is which. If you can tell which is which, I want you to have a look at both butterflies and decide which you like better. Let's do the petals first. Now we're not going to get too technical with this because we have a limited color palette, but I'm going to use the exact same colors. I have the Scholar again on the left and the Prismacolor on the right, and see what difference there is if you can notice on camera as I notice in real life. So anyone who is a bit heavy-handed, like I am, knows that when you're using your Prismacolor Premier, there's a bit of fallout, i.e. as you're colouring, tiny bits of the lead will break off. They'll go across your paper. Normally when I flick them off like that, I smudge my paper, and it can leave it a bit messy looking. This can happen because of the type of paper you're using, but most of the time it is because I'm too heavy-handed. The Premier tend to do it more than other brands of pencils that I know, but the Scholar also did. Not to the same extent as the Premier, but they also have the same kind of small breakage, then we'll say, of the lead as you're doing it, which I think is a good thing in a way, because it means that they're very, very similar to the Premier pencils. Makes them a lot closer to the Premiers than I actually thought they would be. So that's my comparison done for the petals. Again, you could have taken a lot more time on both petals to make them blend a little bit better, to make them stand out a little bit more, to put in the highlights and stuff, but this is just purely a colour comparison between the two different sets. And honestly, there is so little difference that I am really quite shocked. So now I'm going to take away the paper. I'm going to colour the two butterflies off camera, and when they come back, I would like you to, one, decide which one is the Scholar and which one is the Premier, and then have a look at both of them and see, would you say, if you saw them on a colouring page, that one was better or worse than the other? Would you immediately pick out one to be a lot more quality than the other? And would you say that there was a massive price difference between one colouring set and the other? So here are the two butterflies. The top one the light is shining on and it's making it look a little bit more shiny. But straight away, are you drawn to one over the other? Have you guessed which one's which? So the top butterfly is the Prismacolor Scholars, and the bottom is the Prismacolor Premier. Now I think if you've used colouring pencils for a while, you would be able to tell these apart. You're going to be able to see the slight difference in the quality, but ever so slightly. To me and my thinking, if you have a budget, the Prismacolor Scholars are definitely a pencil that I would consider buying. I've actually given the set of 12 to my son who's 10. Not because I don't want to use these colouring pencils, because I really think that they're going to help him to progress, and I am going to get him the slightly bigger set before I fork out kind of big bucks and get him a Prismacolor Premier set, because for a 10-year-old we know spending any kind of huge money on colouring pencils wouldn't be such a great idea, but these I'm more than happy to fork out and get him some sets of these, because I really think that this will bring his colouring on and help him progress without having to compromise on his colours or his quality or my purse. For myself, I prefer to kind of save up and get the set that I want, so I would probably save a bit longer and get the Premiers over the Scholars. But if I was stuck and couldn't afford the Premiers, I definitely would turn to these as a definite close second. In my opinion, if you're not producing art as a profession, then this is more than adequate to kind of help you learn your techniques, help you learn your colours, help you learn anything you want to, and then progress up to the Prismacolor Premiers. Well, that is it for me. I hope this has been helpful. If it has, consider subscribing, give the video a like, click those notifications. Stay healthy, stay happy, and until next time, as always, stay sassy.